새벽 3시 16분이 막 지나고 있습니다. 토요일 날입니다. 벌써 오늘 달력을 보니까 13일 1월 13일 토요일입니다. 자, 오늘 어제 뉴욕타임즈를 거충거충 한번 또 읽어보겠습니다. How the Iowa caucuses set up the Republican race. State's vote is known for being one in which a win is always a win. The assumption about a big Trump night means his biggest opponent may be expectation. It may feel as if there is little suspense over who is likely to win the Republican presidential caucuses in Iowa on Monday. But in Iowa, the unexpected can be expected, and the win is not always a win. The result could shape the future of the Republican Party at a time of transition, and the future of the Iowa caucuses after a difficult decade. It could help determine whether Nikki Haley, the former U.S. ambassador and the South Carolina governor, present a serious obstacle to Donald J. Trump's return to power, and whether Ron DeSantis, the governor of Florida, will be forced out of the race. Here's a guide to some possible outcomes and what they mean for the contenders. A Trump victory. All the assumptions about a big Trump night mean that the former president's biggest opponent may turn out to be expectation, not his two main rivals on the ballot, Ms. Haley and Mr. DeSantis. Mr. Trump and his campaign have set the bar high. Mr. Trump has run as an incumbent, not even debating his opponents. His aides say he could set a record for an open race by finishing at least 12 points ahead of his nearest rival. And for Mr. Trump, that could be a problem. A wicked DeSantis showing. The governor of Florida was once seen as Mr. Trump's biggest threat, and Iowa was the state where he could seize the mantle of being the Trump alternative. But Mr. DeSantis has not lived up to his billing, and the rise of Ms. Haley has forced him to the edge of the stage. The test for Mr. DeSantis earlier this campaign season was whether he could use Iowa to create a two-way race with Mr. Trump. Now he is struggling to make certain that he at least scores what he was always expected to score, a strong second-place finish, a strong Haley showing. If Ms. Haley does come in a solid second, this becomes a different race. She would head into the New Hampshire, a state where she had strong institutional support, with the wind at the back, even after a few weeks that have been marked by stumbles on the campaign trail. She could present herself as a real alternative for Republicans looking for another candidate besides Mr. Trump to lead the party this November. And her supporters would almost certainly turn up the pressure on Mr. DeSantis to step aside to allow the party to unify around her. She becomes the alternative to former President Trump. And Jimmy Sanders, a longtime Iowa Republican consultant, and then I think the chorus is going to say it's time for the field to winnow so they can go head to head. if we don't have a clear second-place person who can claim the mantle of where the not Trump vote goes in subsequent state, I don't see where Trump is facing any challenges, said Ted G., a longtime Iowa Republican leader. Allegation roils Trump case. Prosecutors overseeing Georgia proceeding are said to have a romantic link. It seemed an unusual choice when the district attorney in Fulton County, Georgia, turned out to suburban defense lawyer to oversee what seemed the biggest task of her career, building an election interference case against former President Donald J. Trump. In arguing for the case to be dismissed, Mr. R's legal team wrote that Ms. Willis had failed to properly obtain the approval of the Fulton County Commission before hiring Mr. Wade. But on Tuesday, P., a Republican who led the prosecuting attorney council of Georgia, a state agency that provides service to prosecutors, said that district attorneys in Georgia were not required to seek the authorization of a county commission before making such hires. Their job typically involved handling misdemeanor cases. Mr. W., who could not be reached for this article, earned a law degree from the John Marshall Law School in Illinois, which was eventually merged with the law school at the University of Illinois at Chicago. In hearings related to the Trump case, he projects the competence, typically striding into courtrooms in well-tailored suit, surrounded by a gaggle of fellow prosecutors. A homeless purge, the purge, than violence against the vulnerable. Some unhoused residents in Montana report being accosted and attacked after watching tents and other makeshift shelters spread into city parks and sidewalks. Officials in northwestern Montana decided it was time for the crackdown on homelessness. It is our hope that our community will be unified in rejecting all things that empower the homeless lifestyle, the commissioner wrote. But in the year since that call to action, the purge effort has done little to resolve a problem that is still apparent, even now amid the frigid depths of winter. On the street of a city better known as a gateway to scenic ski slopes and Glacier National Park, the walls painted a picture that the homeless are not from here, that they are not our neighbors, so we should not take care of them. The Ms. H said it was dehumanizing. Many of those encampments are long-time locals displaced by the skyrocketing housing cost. Sad to say, but with more people coming to the valley also comes more crime and unwanted behavior. from individuals. One person wrote, "Carry every underwear." "I just cried and cried and cried and cried," she said. The experience, she said, had helped her realize that she had been too judgmental of the homeless people she had seen around town. "I don't want to be here," Jessica, 45, said, and she arrived at the shelter one night in December. She had grown up in a well-off family in the area and recently lost her retail job when she had an extended illness. She tried sleeping in a car, then eventually ended up at the warming center. On a post night there a few months ago, she got out of the car, saw the line of people waiting to get inside, and broke down in tears. It was not the type of place people like her should ever stay, she thought, but she went in and curled up on one of the bunk beds. There is not an easy way out, he said. Gas station heroin provoke alarm among health officials. Potentially addictive elixirs are among a growing class of unregulated substances. There are now at least a dozen different products that are foreign drugs being openly marketed as dietary supplements. The young father headed across the parking lot to join the other parents, meeting their children's new preschool teachers. After a few steps, he began sweating and twitching. As the sky reeled, he staggered back to the car, desperate to lie down in the back seat and breathe, hidden by tinted windows. "Did you take something?" his wife Anne shouted at him while calling emergency assistance. Eric, 26, had completed rehab earlier in the summer. The shot, he groaned just before he hit the ground and blacked out. In the emergency room of a nearby hospital in southern New Jersey, doctors tried to revive him with a defibrillator. What's he on? They yelled at Anne. She showed them a shot-sized bottle of the cherry-flavored elixir she had fished out of the car. It was labeled Neptune's Fix. Eric had bought it at a local smoker shop. "What the hell is that? What the hell is that?" a doctor asked. "Yeah, Neptune's Fix features an ingredient called tianeptine, popularly known as gas station heroin." In interviews, some poison center directors did not endorse a full ban of tianeptine, saying that could lead to dangerous underground trafficking. Educating emergency responders and consumers about inherent risk in such a product would be a more effective course, they said. U.S. labor movement is split over war in Gaza. generational changes complicate the long tradition of union support for Israel. Why we are here, said to be a leader with the United Automobile Workers. Mr. M faced a crowd of hundreds of union members gathered on the steps of the New York Public Library's Fifth Avenue branch, huddling against the cold as they rallied for a ceasefire in Gaza. Ceasefire now, solidarity forever, said Mr. M, 29, as the crowd cheered, waving Union banners and the Palestinian flags. Let's get more and more unions behind us. On display in that December 21st protest, which was staged shortly after the 350,000-member UAU voted to support a ceasefire, was a shift in the American labor movement's relationship with Israel. A long history, the American labor movement's traditionally close relationship with Israel stems from decades of Jewish labor leaders staunchly backing the state. Even before its founding in 1917, the American Federation of Labor passed a resolution supporting the Balfour Declaration, which called for the creation of a Jewish state in Palestine, and throughout the 1920s and 1930s, unions donated millions to the Histadrut, Israel's national labor union. In many ways, you can argue that U.S. unions helped to construct the state of Israel. What you are seeing is this new activist layer saying these are one and the same fight that he said. This is being generated by social movement young people, Gen Zs, millennials, said as a labor lawyer who had worked with an Amazon labor union. I don't think they are anti-Israel necessarily, but what they've seen in Israel is the Netanyahu government. When Elton John declutters, CJ auctioning an array of objects from his Atlanta penthouse. Elton John is downsizing, and the superstar's former penthouse residence in Atlanta has been emptied for a series of auctions at Christie's. Starting on February 21st, the items are expected to bring in an estimated $10 million. You have to reach a stage where you can just continue to accumulate. Elton hates parting with things. Interest rate and inflation put Fed in election spotlight. U.S. Central Bank is poised to cut rate in 2024 as a key event looms in background. This year is set to be a big one for U.S. Federal Reserve officials. They are expecting to cut interest rate several times as inflation comes down steadily, giving them a chance to dial back a 2-year effort to cool the economy. But 2024 is also an election year, and the Fed's expected shift in stance could tip it into the political spotlight just as the campaign season kicks into the gear. The Fed reacts the same way in election year as it does in non-election years. The White House did not provide an off-the-record comment. But now price pressure are easing, and the federal officials could soon begin to debate when and how much they can lower rate. Policymakers projected last month that they could cut borrowing costs 3 times this year to above 4.6%, and investors think rate could fall even further to about 3.9% by the end of the year. But some on Wall Street think that cutting interest rate just before an election could put the central bank in a top spot, especially if the moves occurred closer to November. The key thing is to keep it legible and legitimate, said the chief U.S. economist at Deutsche Bank. Why are they doing what they are doing? We never take into account political consideration. Mr. Powell said then, we also don't conduct monetary policy in order to prove our independence. A compromise on immigration could benefit Biden. Brokering a deal could help him shore up the non-traditional alliance that got him elected 4 years ago. The negotiation on Ukraine funding and the stricter U.S.-Mexico border protection have exposed a growing rift between President Biden and his own party. Republican hardliners have demanded a bill that mirrors policies advanced during the Trump administration, especially ones related to asylum seekers, increased border security, and mandate that companies institute the E-Verify employment eligibility system. Securing the borders of a sovereign state isn't racism. It's amongst the first responsibility of government. While this would be a prudent political move, such a shift would most likely lead to an internal democratic civil war. The advent of AI doesn't have to mean the death of labor. America's Democrats must not repeat the mistake of globalization. Last September, techs at the biggest names trekked to Capitol Hill in Washington for a forum on artificial intelligence. In a meeting closed to journalists, executives briefed nearly 2/3 of the U.S. Senate on the future of AI. A few respected labor and civil leaders were present, but the tech titans dominated the headlines. There's an assumption in Silicon Valley that the first trillionaire may well be an AI entrepreneur, so tech leaders were eager to share their thoughts on some rules of the road. They warned of killer the robots and the Terminator scenario, of the misinformation and the fake videos, but gave the short shrift to broader issues of economic fairness and wealth disparity that are more urgent concern to most Americans. Watch Mark Zuckerberg Bill Gates and Sam Altman lead a confab on the ethical principles and regulation that should guide AI development was reminiscent of Davos conference in the 1990s and early 2000s. Tech companies argued that replacing human drivers with AI is feasible, will reduce labor costs and will therefore make it cheaper to transport goods and services. Writers were intrigued by the ways AI could help as a research tool and unlock new potential for movies and TV, but were concerned that studios might rush to use the AI to write the cookie-cutter script and sacrifice the imagination and creativity on the altar of profits. It's better for writers, not executives, to slowly discover the best use of AI in entertainment. That said, workers need more than just a voice and guardrails. They should also share in company profit, whether they are working for a trucking company, a production studio, or a car manufacturer. There are already reports that AI could displace tens of thousands of jobs this year at big companies, potentially causing damage to their culture and their local communities, and starting a concerning trend. A workforce committee at each company should weigh in on how AI could help the employees better do their existing jobs, whether new hiring should slow down, and what new credentialing or roles for affected employees could look like before restructuring and letting people go. This is not to dismiss the need for dynamism, fluidity, and flexibility. The advent of AI doesn't have to mean the death of labor. Hamas turned my city into a ghost town, but will recover. In Taiwan's election, democracy is a threat. When you return clothes, the planet pays the price. The next stop for online purchases that are sent back may be the dump. January is a time to redo, revise, recommit. It is also the time to return things. After 2023's season of rebounded holiday shopping, we can click the return button first on the season's passive-aggressive and otherwise unwanted gift, an upgraded espresso machine, perhaps not so necessary, farewell to the aspirational dress purchased but never quite fit into without the skis. By some estimate, returning purchases in America reached record levels in 2022. The portion of purchase returned had jumped twofold to 16% from 8% of sales between 2019 and 2022, and returning things online has become so easy. Just scan the downloaded QR code that people return items bought online at 3 times the rate that return things purchased in store. Trying to figure out if a pair of jeans will flatter by looking at professional porters and the inseam measurement is hard enough, but widespread disparities in sizing convention in which brand designate the size almost entirely for marketing reasons make it even harder. Brand aimed at the rich and skinny may be French in their true-to-size austerity, while most of the brand is aiming to please opens at a size 2 that fit more like a size 6. Customers return approximately 24% of clothing purchased online. January could be a time to redo, revise, and recommit to a lot less of the returning. Well, reset your relationship with food by reading. These books will help adjust your attitudes to what and how you eat. How is your relationship with food these days? For many of us, the honest answer is it's complicated. Perhaps you stress it more than you'd care to admit, or are always on the latest diet. Maybe you just spend too much mental energy on food and have a nagging sense that is supposed to be well easier. If you are looking for a reset, you might start with some reading. We are in something of a heyday for books about food and bodies. We asked 9 experts in psychology, nutrition, and body image for their recommendation. These picks will help you understand why many of us relate to food the way we do, and how to shift into a healthy way of thinking about the food. Intuitive eating, a revolutionary anti-diet approach. Gentle nutrition, a non-diet approach to healthy eating. Independence of food, an Eater's Manifesto. Shaking up the dating scene. Overwhelmed by apps and profiles, here's how to start the new year fresh. If you are on the dating scene in 2024, you have very likely accumulated a certain amount of clutter. Maybe it's an outdated online profile that you can't bring yourself to overhaul, or a match you keep messaging despite not seeing a future together. Perhaps you are still haunted by someone who ghosted you. You can only take on so many new relationships before starting to feel some burnout. Pain-free workout for your wallet anyway. You don't need a trainer or expensive equipment to build an exercise habit. If you have a limitless budget, there is no question that you can get into the shape. You can hire top-flight trainers by yourself, a Peloton or a tonal smart gym, and then splurge on bikes, kayaks, and windsurfing gear. Battle ropes are another great way to work the arms and get some cardio with little risk of injury, and while most tend to start at $50, nothing is stopping you from making one with supplies from the hardware store. For people who are considering working with a cane, Dr. R often recommends trying 1 or 2 tracking poles instead, which encourage better posture than leaning over a cane. Europe wavers on Ukraine, backing strong in Baltics, but other countries are showing signs of fatigue. Every neighbor of Russia has a good reason to be worried. Drones give Ukraine some success at sea. Use of craft was a bright spot in a disappointing year for the Kyiv military leadership. There are no instructors, no textbooks. We are writing these books now. Fragile blooms become a sturdy attraction. The cultivation of camellias, agile as other ornamental beauties, has become a mainstay of the local economy. Lakefront of Varvania in northern Italy seek to lure camellia lovers. Quebec's long-gone hockey team still a symbol of nationalist pride. Politicians have tried to harness this sense of nationalism for political gains. Brian Flores isn't afraid and he's looking back. He's learned a lot running the Vikings defense, but his Miami shoot clouds his future. Culture. True Detective is playing it cool. Set in Alaska this season with Carly and Jody has a female outlook. The most recent showrunner, Issa, decided there was no harm in dreaming big and dark and cold. Yeah, color purple sputters. After big opening in Hollywood parlance, the film hasn't broadened beyond specialty viewers. The Color Purple, a new musical take on Alice Walker's landmark novel, seemed to arrive as an instant hit. Awash in critical exaltation, the movie rolled into North American theaters on Christmas Day and sold more than $18 million in tickets, a near record for the holiday. Audiences gave it an A grade in cinema score exit polls. In Taiwan, democracy is a threat. As China matters in the island election on Saturday, the stakes couldn't be higher. Crackdown divide a nation. The leader of Ecuador has deployed the military to fight criminal gangs. The mystery of flag number 98 and the famous explorer's son. In his father's shadow, he hoarded many, ready to preserve a legacy. Will shake confidence in Israel's tech sector. Key driver of the economy is jolted by labor shortages and investor concern. Mystery of flag number 98 and an explorer's son. His whole life was pretty difficult. You can imagine what it was like to be the son of Admiral Bard. Military crackdown on drug gangs divide the nation. Good justice and order cannot ask for permission or bow their heads to terrorists. Pomposity among the Aztec book review. The Mexican writer A's new novel has a soft, nebulous title. You dreamed of empire. Its cover is forgettable too. Time does bend in. You dreamed of empire. Writing in an endangered language. M's poems are part of an effort both global and deeply local. Living. Definition of good wine, well, is complicated. What makes a wine good? I find it difficult to enjoy wine that I know is made in ways that are damaging or in conflict with all we now know about our fragile habitat. Put tofu into regular rotation with this spicy mix. What makes this sauce truly special is its chameleon-like nature. It changes depending on how you use it.